I didn't know yet that my son was standing across the street with a coffee, waiting. I didn't know yet that the papers in the man's hand were already stamped and finished. All I knew was that at 6 in the morning, someone was pounding on my door like I didn't belong there anymore. The sound dragged me out of sleep, hard. Not a neighbor knock, not lost delivery, authority knock, the kind that says, "Get up or we'll decide for you." I pulled on whatever sweatshirt was on the chair and walked down the hall barefoot. The floor was cold. I noticed that, which tells you how fast my brain was running. I unlatched the chain and stepped onto the porch. I needed to see the ink, not just the seal. A deputy sheriff stood there, tan uniform, badge, clipboard. "Lucy Haynes," he said. "Yes, I'm here with a court-issued eviction order." That word landed weird. Eviction. Like it had slipped into the wrong house. He tilted the papers so I could see. My name was printed clean and official, right under it, in smaller letters. It said tenant. Not owner, not resident, tenant. Like I'd been crashing here instead of living here for decades. He kept talking. Default judgment, same-day possession. If there was no stay issued by a judge, they'd be back before noon. My fingers went numb on the chain. Just for a second, I let it pass. "My name is Lucy Haynes," I said. "I'm 60. How much time do I have before you come back?" He looked at me like that wasn't the question he expected. He answered anyway. "Procedure, clock." Neutral voice. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Honestly, I didn't trust myself to do either without making it worse. I just asked for the case number and his name. I could feel my heart doing stupid things, but I kept my mouth steady. Then I noticed movement through the glass, across the street. Someone leaned against a car, watching, not surprised, not confused. If you've ever had the feeling that a day was planned without you, you know the one. I closed the door carefully, like the house was still mine. I stepped back from the door and looked through the narrow pane of glass. That's when I saw him. Evan was across the street, leaning against a dark SUV I didn't recognize. New, clean. He held a paper coffee cup like he'd planned to be awake. Like this was just another stop on his morning schedule. He didn't wave, didn't pretend to be surprised. He checked his watch once, slow, like timing something. I didn't open the door again. I didn't call his name. I just stood there, breathing through my nose, letting the pieces line up whether I liked them or not. A few months back, he'd started talking different, always tired, always stressed. Money stuff. He'd called it. Brushing it off like lint. Then came the paperwork, a rush job. He showed up with forms already clipped together, just to help manage things. He'd told me, mail, property stuff, in case anything happens. I remember hesitating. I remember thinking I was being paranoid. I signed anyway. That part's on me, I swear. You spend enough years trying not to be a burden, and you start saying yes to things that feel wrong, outside. Evan shifted his weight. Took a sip. Didn't look away from the house. Behind me, the deputy cleared his throat, not impatient, more like uncomfortable. "You know the plaintiff?" he asked. "Yes, I told him, I do." He glanced past me, just once, toward the street. His shoulders tightened a notch. The neutral mask stayed on, but something in his stance changed. Like this had crossed from routine into something he'd need to write carefully later. I folded my arms, more to keep them still than anything else. If this was a performance, I wasn't going to give him the scene he wanted. For a second, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so planned. Coffee hot, car ready, timing perfect. I closed the door the rest of the way and slid the bolt. Not locked, just placed. Like a pause. I had no idea yet how fast the clock was running. I kept my voice even. That took work. Who filed this? The deputy looked down at the papers like the answer might change if he checked again. His thumb slid along the edge of the packet, just a beat too long. The plaintiff is Evan Haynes. There it was, clean, out loud. No drama in it at all. I didn't react the way he probably expected. No gasp. No shake. I leaned closer and tapped the page with one finger. Can you show me the proof of service? He turned the clipboard so I could see. Lines, boxes, a signature I didn't recognize as anyone I trusted. Then the address. That's not my address. I told him. Hasn't been for years. He followed my finger. Read it again. His jaw tightened. Not a lot. Just enough. That's the address listed on the return. He answered. I sold that place. I said, I don't receive mail there. I don't sleep there. I haven't set foot there in years. He didn't argue. He didn't correct me. He went quiet in a way that felt deliberate, like he was choosing his next step carefully. I need to be clear, he said after a moment. I'm not here to determine ownership. I execute court orders, I understand, I replied. I'm not asking you to decide anything. He looked at me then, really looked, like he was recalibrating. The routine version of this stop had shifted into something else, something with edges. If you believe service was improper, he added. Slower now. You'll need to take that up with the court. Immediately. I plan to... Across the street. Evan moved again. Another glance at his watch. Still not approaching. Still letting the paper do the talking. The deputy adjusted the stack. Squared it. Like he needed things tidy before they went sideways. I'll note your statement. He told me. Please do. He nodded once. Professional. Careful. Then he glanced back at the address, as if it had started to bother him, too. The deputy flipped a page back and walked me through it like he was explaining a grocery receipt. Family member occupying the property without paying rent. He said, plaintiff claims repeated requests to vacate. I watched his finger move down the page. Calm. Procedural. Like none of this was personal. There's a lease attached. He added. He turned the clipboard again. The heading read, Residential Lease Agreement. My name was typed in neat letters at the top. Below it, a signature that made my stomach tighten. It looked like mine at first glance. Same loop on the L, same drag on the H. But the pressure was wrong, too stiff. Like someone copying it from memory and losing patience halfway through. That's not how I sign, I said. He didn't push back. Just nodded once and kept explaining. Court received this with the complaint. No response filed. Default judgment entered. It clicked then, not all at once. Piece by piece. The authorization Evan had rushed me to sign. The pages clipped together too neatly, the way he'd insisted it was just to handle mail and minor property stuff. He hadn't forged my name from scratch. He'd recycled it, reframed it, added pages I never saw and slapped a new title on top. I exhaled slow through my nose. I have never rented my own home. The deputy glanced at the signature again, like he was storing the image for later. He didn't just use the wrong address. I told the deputy. He swore under oath that I still lived there just to ensure I'd never see the court date. I never got the notice. I answered. So I never showed up. He didn't argue. That part spoke for itself. If there's no stay, he continued. Careful now. We return at noon to execute the order. Noon. A clean word. Heavy. He squared the papers like that might keep them from shaking. You still have time, he added. Not reassurance. Just fact. I watched his hand rest on the clipboard. Watched the story Evan told the court sit there, finished and confident, waiting for someone louder than paper to interrupt it. Can I have the case number? I asked. And the judge's department. The deputy answered without hesitation. He watched me pull my phone out and start photographing the pages. One by one. The seal, the caption, the service return, the lease exhibit list. I held the phone steady, even when my hands wanted to rush. Sloppy photos turn into sloppy arguments. You need to contact the court, he said. Lower now. Not advice, just reality. Immediately. I will, I told him, he nodded. Neutral, but not cold. Like someone who's seen how fast things go wrong when people freeze. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against it for half a second. Not for comfort. Just to reset. Then I went straight to the hallway drawer and pulled out the fireproof pouch. Old. Scuffed. The zipper caught like it always does. Inside were the boring things people ignore until they're oxygen. My identification. Property tax statements with my name printed clean and boring. Homeowner's insurance in my name. And the thick binder with the trust documents. Edges worn from being moved but never used. I didn't touch clothes. Didn't touch photos. Evan would have loved that. Boxes on the lawn. Proof I was panicking. Instead, I sat at the table and flipped back to the service page. The address stared at me. The old condo, the one I sold years ago. The one I hadn't received mail at since before my hair started going gray. It felt almost insulting, like a dare. I slid the binder into my bag and zipped it closed. Slow, deliberate. Panic gives people stories to tell later. I wasn't giving Evan another one. I opened the door again. The deputy was still there, waiting. The papers rested against his arm, finished and confident. I'm going to the courthouse, I told him. I stepped back inside long enough to swap my sweatshirt for a heavy trench coat and pull on a pair of boots. I tucked my phone and the deputy's card into my pocket. He met my eyes and gave a small nod, like he understood exactly why I wasn't packing anything else. I searched my email and every filing drawer. Nothing. No notice. No warning. Then the realization hit the authorization Evan had me sign for mail management wasn't a favor. It was a trap designed to swallow court notices. I dialed the courthouse. I have a case number. I told the clerk. I was never properly served. The address is wrong. The system shows you were served in person, she replied, her voice efficient and cold. At an address you haven't owned in 5 years. Silence counts as consent in their world. I didn't waste time on shock. I need to file an emergency motion. What do you need from me right now? As I wrote down her instructions. Evan's voice drifted in through the front door. Mom, don't make this ugly. I saw him toss his coffee cup and start walking toward the porch. He'd seen the deputy stay too long. The plan was lagging. I turned to the deputy and gestured toward the small table just inside the entryway. The documents are right here, I said, unwilling to let the conversation happen where Evan could overhear. I opened the binder on the table and slid one document forward. Heavy paper. Raised seal, the kind that doesn't need explaining if you know what you're looking at. This house is held under a life estate trust. I told the deputy, I have exclusive rights for my lifetime. He leaned in. Read. Didn't rush. My son has a remainder interest. I continued. Future. After me. He can't lease it. He can't evict me. He can't act as landlord. No anger in my voice. No edge. Just the facts. Stacked clean. The deputy nodded slowly and pulled out his pen. That's a standing issue, he muttered. More to himself than to me. He wrote it down in his log. Careful with the wording. I noticed that. People get careful when things stop being simple. I'm not here to decide it, he added. Looking up, but a judge will. I know. He closed the binder gently, like it mattered. What matters now is time. You need a stay before noon. I'm working on it. He straightened. Professional again, but different than before. Less automatic, like the job had shifted under his feet. Behind him. Movement. Footsteps on asphalt. Evan was already on the lawn, his shadow stretching toward the porch. "Mom," he called, voice steady, like he was approaching a business meeting. "We need to talk." I didn't look at him right away. I slid the binder back into my bag and zipped it. Slow, on purpose. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied. "You filed papers you don't have the right to file." He stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the tightness around his mouth. Not panic, yet something harder. "You're making this complicated," he said. I met his eyes then. "No, you are." The deputy cleared his throat, reminding us he was still there, still watching, still writing. Evan shifted his weight, glanced at his watch again, and for the first time, the timing didn't look as comfortable as he wanted it to. Evan stopped just short of the porch, close enough to lower his voice, far enough to pretend this was still respectful. "Just go for now." He told me, "Take a few days. We'll talk later. No need to turn this into a whole thing." I didn't answer right away. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen. One clean swipe, recording on. I didn't announce it. I didn't owe him that. "You filed an eviction," I replied. That already made it a whole thing. His jaw tightened. "You're focusing on the wrong part." "Then explain the right part." He exhaled through his nose. Annoyed now, the reasonable tone cracked. "There's a refinance appointment this afternoon. The house has to be vacant, that's all." "That's not all," I said. He hesitated.
"Just a fraction." "Enough, there's a partner," he admitted. "Someone waiting on paperwork. I already told them the place would be clear, not transferred, not sold. Clear. It lined up fast. Too fast to ignore. He didn't need ownership. He needed access. Possession long enough to leverage a house that was never his, to gamble with money he'd already spent. "You needed me gone before anyone checked the details," I told him. "Before a judge saw the trust." His eyes flicked to my phone.
"Are you recording me?" "Yes." "For what?" he snapped. "To make me look bad." "No," I answered. "To make you accurate." He laughed once. Short, sharp. "You always do this. You always think you're smarter." "I don't think," I said. I read behind us. The deputy shifted his stance. "Not intervening, just present." Evan noticed, lowered his voice again. "You can stop this," he said. "Right now." I shook my head. I already did. My phone buzzed in my hand. A single line from my attorney. "Filing the emergency stay now." I slipped the phone back into my pocket and met Evan's stare. The confidence was still there, but it wasn't settled anymore. It was waiting on something outside his control. I stepped back inside and closed the door. Not slammed, just closed. The clock was still running, but it wasn't only running for me anymore. I didn't sit in the waiting area. I stood, folder tucked under my arm like it might run if I loosened my grip. The clerk at the counter glanced at the papers, then at me. "Emergency motion," she asked. "Yes," I told her. "And a motion to vacate default for improper service." She nodded and slid the stack through the slot. Efficient. No sympathy. I appreciated that more than kindness. My attorney arrived, breathless. Coat half on, hair still damp. He didn't waste time. He flipped through the documents. Stopped at the service page, then at the trust. "This changes things," he muttered. A lot. Inside the small hearing room, the on-call judge skimmed fast, not careless. Fast like someone who knows exactly what to look for. He paused at the address on the return of service. Then at the lease, his finger tapped once on the page. "The proof of service is a fiction," the judge noted, "and the plaintiff lacks present possessory interest. He has no authority to evict a life tenant." My attorney leaned in. "And he, plaintiff, lacks present possessory interest. The property is held under a life estate trust. Ms. Haynes holds exclusive lifetime rights." The judge's posture shifted. Not dramatic. Subtle. The temperature dropped a few degrees. So the court entered default without proper service, he said, and the plaintiff presented himself as landlord. Yes, my attorney replied. Based on documents the defendant never received, the judge leaned back. Read the trust again. Slower this time. He nodded once, then turned to the clerk. I'm issuing an emergency stay of enforcement, he said. Effective immediately. The sound of keys clacking felt louder than it should have. The order went out electronically. Clean. Fast. My phone buzzed before I could exhale. The deputy's number. We've received the stay. He told me. His voice was different now. Lower. Careful. Enforcement is halted. Thank you. I answered. There are inconsistencies here, he added. We're documenting the service issue and the lease for review. I didn't respond right away. I was watching the judge sign the order, watching ink settle into paper like something permanent. Outside, the deputy met me again. He handed me a copy and spoke quietly. Like words mattered more when they weren't broadcast. This is no longer just an eviction. I nodded. No smile, no relief parade. I asked the clerk for certified copies. Asked for timestamps. Wrote notes in the margin like I was building something sturdy, brick by brick. When I walked out, Evan was gone. The house would still be there when I returned. So would the paperwork. The rest would sort itself out later. I got home before noon. The stay order was in my coat pocket. Crisp and powerful. Evan was gone. Along with his polished SUV. No goodbye. No apology. The neighbors had seen enough anyway. Curtains twitching. Eyes lingering. On the way back, I had stopped at the post office. I formally revoked all mail management authorizations and registered for informed delivery directly to my private phone. From now on, not a single piece of mail addressed to Lucy Haynes would be accidentally diverted by Evan again. The lesson in blind trust had ended at the postal counter that morning. The locksmith arrived shortly after, when the new lock clicked into place. The sound was heavier and more final than I expected. I set the life estate trust binder back where it belonged and installed a small camera above the porch. Not because I was scared, but because I was done being unprepared. Boundaries only feel cruel to those who benefit from you having none. Protecting yourself doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop bleeding quietly just to keep others comfortable. I didn't text Evan. Some lessons don't come with closure. They come with new locks, clean legal documents, and a silence that finally belongs to me. I turned off the light, checked the door one last time, and let the house stay mine for the night.